Hello, fair intrepid viewer. It's me again, the Archivist. And today I would like to talk about fanfics, particularly MLP fanfics. Now, there are, I'm guessing, about 100 plus different MLP fanfics, headcanons, and all that gambit out there. And today I would like to cover, I guess, just a few, more like 20, but a very small portion of what is actually out there of MLP fanfics I um, have read to me over YouTube and have read partial bits of stories myself. Hopefully, I'll write my own and read my own fanfic in the near future, so that's something to look forward to. Anyway, these titles are titles I have heard and liked and wish to recommend. I will try to get as many facts right as I can, so please forgive me if I miss a detail or two. Remember, this is raw and unscripted. Alright. First off, the top of the list is Children of the Night. Now, this is inspired by the really awesome PMA, I guess they pronounce it, Pony Music Video, or PMV, and it's really good. The quality of animation is right up there with the TV series. It's well thought out. It's just all around just awesome visually, music, editorial, and even concept. Like what the subject is about is really good. And it totally is, well, could be considered until they finally give us the backstory, a bit clearer in season 4, which they were hinting at at the Comic-Con animatics. Pardon that, my window's open. Anyway, so this, I believe it's called a headcanon for the backstory for the creation that led to the rift between the sisters, that thus then led to the creation of A Nightmare Moon. The music video pretty much says that Luna wanted to create her own little independent nation to help make things better after the climactic battle with Discord. Her sister says no, that would lead to the whole society, what's left of it, crumbling. But there's so much strife that Luna feels that she is compelled to take the Forsaken, particularly the children, take them somewhere that they can be looked after and cared for, because there aren't enough adults, I guess, to really take care of them and rebuild their world. I'm guessing it's why. So I guess Luna's taking them somewhere where they can have proper supervision and care by herself, or maybe a small community to look after each other. I'm not entirely sure how that's really going to work. But she's taking them away to a place that's better. And it pretty much just ends on that. So the story pretty much takes place like a couple hundred years after those events. Where at the end of season 3, where the Chrysalis invade and just have this massive slaughter at Ponyville, Canterlot, and just start to invade all over the country. And we get introduced to the Children of the Night, who are then grown up, and they live underneath this dark dome thing, which Luna has provided. So they're kind of more nocturnal-ish types. They've kind of evolved to live there a bit, so they can't really stay out during the day too much, but then they find a way around that, and blah blah blah. It's an in-depth story. It builds on the world. It stays true to the characters, fills in the backstory. It's very creative. It's very emotional. It doesn't feel like it wants you, like it forces you to care for characters you don't normally care for. Because sometimes people write stories where it's a character you really don't really care for, but they draw in such emotion and make you feel so bad for these characters. It just feels a little bit manipulative. This story does not do that. You really generally care for these characters because you go along with their lives and their pains and their joys, their victories and their defeats, and everything. So you really feel for these characters, and it's all read by one guy. This guy, Harry Hurting is his YouTube handle, and he's great. He supervised. He lends his voice. He doesn't really change his voice too much. He changes his pitch, and it's all just read by him, and he's a good storyteller. And no one is spared from hurt or death, really. No one's being played favorites here. There's no, well, this person has survived more than this person or pony because of the writer's favoritism. Everybody's fair game. That's really has suspense. Anybody could die at any time. That is incredibly difficult to write good, likable characters by a writer and then have them be killed off. I can't do that. I've written stuff, and I just keep bringing people I like back because I just really cannot kill off a character that I liked. I like a lot of characters. I like these characters that I make. So that's a sign of a very mature writer, is this guy, is Harry Hurting. Yeah, it's like 25-ish, around there, chapters that mainly consist of 15 to 30 to 45 minute chapters lengths, various different lengths. So it's a really good story. I highly recommend it. It's in character, and everyone gets more or less smacked around, and to a greater extent killed. So yeah, he pulls no punches. It's really recommended. So it has its bit of a gruesome parts to it. Certain chapters are, he says, just skip it if you don't like the main six getting smacked around a lot. So for that chapter, so he says skip it if you don't like it. So near the beginning, every other chapter is of the main six kind of getting smacked around. So he says skip it in the beginning if you don't like it, which I did. I skipped every other chapter in the beginning, and then after that whole thing, and then we just stayed with it, and it was just great. So I recommend this guy, Children of the Night. Okay, next is Past Sins. Past Sins is a really good story. It's on par with Children of the Night. This isn't the written material, this is the read material, which I'm pretty much will be covering, much as I can, because this is a lot of information to go through, and I'm trying to just get this out there to you. And all the information's free. All you have to do is go to YouTube, find the story, and then you can just find if you want to read it, because they say pretty much, or it'd be in the description if the reader had written it themselves, or says the name of the writer, or where to find it. So it's all right there. So I don't have to keep on saying where the various information. It's all right there, just to go the first clue, and you can find the rest easily enough on your own. Okay, Past Sins is really good. It's all about Nightmare Moon again. That there was like this cult following of Nightmare Moon, and they tried to resurrect Nightmare Moon. And they kidnapped Twilight to try and make that happen by sacrificing her to resurrect Nightmare Moon. What happens instead is that Princess Celestia comes, saves Twilight, interrupts the spell, and instead of Nightmare Night, we get a little filly colt named Nyx. Nyx is just a baby, pretty much. She's pretty much just a black color, with a dark purple mane, and she's just this innocent little filly. That's it. It's an innocent little baby pony, and throughout the course of the story, she discovers more about her past and everything, and it has its comical moments. Um, it's read by Lit Let's Guy, Green Let's Guy, and uh, it's really good. It has a lot of filler moments in it where they elaborate. I guess it's called world building, where they describe in more detail of the surroundings. So if there's a new location, and characters need to go from point A to point B to help pad out the story, they add the details along between point A and point B. But it doesn't feel too excess. They have it every now and again, just to kind of get the story, have more of an overarching story, like it's more of an epic. It goes on and on, so it's a more sense of time, I guess. It doesn't feel too condensed. I guess the way it's going for it. But it's detailed, it's nice, it doesn't feel too drone on. The story itself is really good. How the resurrection of Nightmare Moon comes, what she says, how she asks. The emotions in this run really high with the characters. And no one feels too out of character. Pinkie Pie still feels like Pinkie Pie. She even meets Nyx for the first time and tries to guess her name. And Pinkie Pie even references Black Snooty. And she says, I wonder why I came to that. I already thought of that for someone else. I wonder why, like why would I do that again, So it was a funny moment. I laughed myself silly for a few minutes on that because I got the reference to the MLP premiere episode. Yeah, so it's basically the return of Nightmare Moon. She defeats Luna and Celestia, banishes them to the moon and the sun, basically becomes ruler of the world, and pretty much you find out what happens when you reach the top. It's a lot like Rocky. It's like, yeah, you're the underdog, you get to the top, and then what? Once you reach the top, there's nowhere else to go, then what? There's nowhere else to go, you've already reached the top. So it shows really of, her conquest, her victory, and it's like the fallout from, you are going to be bored silly, and she kind of bounces back and forth between good and evil, back and forth, and you see that really good struggle, that inner struggle within Nyx, or Nightmare Moon at this point, and it is really good. It really keeps you wanting to know what happens next. It's like Children of the Night. It goes on for several chapters, and each chapter length varies, but it's really fun. It describes itself well. The world is, Equestria. It feels like it's a genuine MLP story arc, like Children of the Night, but a lot less graphic. Nobody dies in this one. Just a lot of hurt feelings and big boo-boos, but no one really dies. Yeah, so Past Sins is really good. I recommend it. And yeah, it's a fun time to be had by all. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one. For the Ones We Love. That's a Spike-oriented episode, story. I was glued to this. It's not finished yet. It's just starting to be read, so it's gonna be a while before it's all read, and it's still, probably still is going to be written some more. It has more of a after story, like the next story arc afterwards. The first story arc talks about Spike being like a teenager, and he grows up a bit. It's supposed to take place like 10 years after, the TV series ended or something like that. And it runs like 20 chapter plus, something like that. it's a big epic again, and um, it shows the story, the love between Spike and Rarity, and what they kind of realize that they still mean a lot to each other, and it shows that there was this third Alicorn, a male, and it has this whole epic backstory take places like thousands and thousands of years ago, about a guy named, oh, what was his name? Conqueror, I believe, or the Conqueror, basically is what it means, and it shows. So it shows this epic backstory between the three Alicorns, and how one of them turns evil and stuff, and the story that evolves of the events of a couple thousand years ago, and the events of today all play together very well. How the guy goes nuts. The events that lead up to him going nuts is believable. All the events happen logically, so nothing feels like too exaggerated, or I was like, yeah, right, like someone would really do that. So everything plays out within reason. So Concord gets banished to the center of the earth, and he starts visiting Spike in his dreams, and basically tells him his backstory, pretty much. Now then this whole war happens, and everyone tries to battle and defeat Concord, and the only two gripes I have is that there's some inconsistencies with Concord's backstory, which is still emotionally, epic, but there's some minor inconsistencies. And that Concord himself is just too powerful as a villain. And he reeks a little bit of cut and paste from Discord. But Conqueror is still likable, but at times it still feels like, it's a cut and paste here, cut and paste there. It's like, oh yeah, that's something more of what Discord would say. But he's still a likable villain all the same. But he's just too powerful. A friend of mine at grimsfedora.com or whatever, he says that a character can't be, too much of anything. Then it just becomes unbelievable. You can't have a hero that's, constantly dodges every attack. That's just, he can't be too strong. This villain is way too strong. Nothing can stop him. He literally paints the halls of Canterlot red. He mows down and through everybody. The main six might as well not even be in there. They don't do anything. They don't stand a chance against this guy. They're constantly being tossed around like rag dolls. All three Alicorns, Cadence, Celestia, and Luna are being tossed around too. So he's just too powerful. And it just gets kind of boring saying, oh yeah, he plows through this, he plows through that, he plows through this. And it's like, could someone at least punch him? Oh, thanks, Spike. Okay, and then he just keeps tossing people. And it's like it just gets a little old saying that he just steamrolls through everything, or in everybody. But other than that, everything else is really good. They bring in everybody, Chrysalis, the Centaurs, the Griffins. So they make reference, and even the dragons. Yeah, they even tell the philosophy and history-ish and the backstory of the dragon society that's not as feral as everyone was led to believe. Like, there's more of a domestic quality to it. There's more of they're a bit further along than just wandering beasts that collect treasure. So yeah, it's a whole story involving Spike and Rarity, and their constant drama, and everyone else's constant drama, and who will survive at the end, who will be left standing. And it is really good. It really keeps the tension of who is left standing at the end of this. Especially during when the battle starts, it just gets kind of like, well, there goes that character, and there goes that pony. It's like, well, but it's good. It's real good. Then it has like the after story where Spike and Rarity get married, and they have kids, and it talks about like how like 4 years later or something after the events, Spikes has this regular domestic life with Rarity. So it's like an average morning or whatever with Spike's family, and it just um, it describes his somewhat hybrid children between mare and dragon, their personalities and traits, and then it goes into the next story arc, which is more about Spike's family, or remaining family, or whatever. And yeah, it's it's good. I had to read the other half in order to actually get somewhere because it's still being read, and the reader still takes a while to get going on getting from chapter to chapter, which is Phantom Brony. He's good. Next is Curse of the Werepony 1 and 2. Okay, this one has some continuity to it. There's a short story called Tootsie Flute Makes 3. It's a short story between it was Bon Bon and another character wanted to have a child of their own. Yeah. So there's magic involved, and eventually one of them gets pregnant, has the kid, and it is referenced in here as it's as canon for this story that those events still happened. Basically explains itself well. Another Spike and Rarity centered story. Read by Prince Pegasus, and it's about it's a bit shorter than the others. It's like 10 chapters or something like that, and it explains how Spike gets kind of like cursed and becomes a werepony. Has something to do with the pony pox and Spike shedding and Spike being bit by Twilight, and during the full moon he turns into a pony. This somehow like shortens his lifespan a bit, to like 10 years instead of like a couple hundred. So and it shows Rarity a little out of character. She kind of goes a bit far at one point in the story that hurts Spike because she's talking to Spike or trying, but she doesn't realize that it's Spike. And so she tries to apologize, and then there's also this big backstory about that Sweetie Belle is really Rarity's daughter and not her little sister. There's that backstory, which was carried over in Luna the Matchmaker. But I'll get to that in a sec. So yeah, so basically it's a lot of backstorying, pretty much, and it shows the Rarity and Spike falling in love, kind of bit of again because of the hurt feelings, and it's a very sweet romantic story. There's no real clopping involved. I just mentioned that they had like an evening to themselves, so it's just like, and then like 2 hours later, and then they come back, and it's like, so there's no graphicness or anything. It's just all very sweet and very romantic. Yeah, Children Night has a lot of adult themes because a lot of ponies die, and the torture scenes, so it's very adult orientated. Past Sins, like I said, it's more of a not NC-17. It's more like PG-13-ish. It's just more of hurt feelings than anything else. Nobody really dies or gets brutally murdered or anything. For the ones we loved, that is so NC-18. That is just, there's no real, it's not really clopping or anything. It's just violent. It's just violent at times. not graphically violent, just like kind of like it's getting a bit much at times. And Curse of the Were Pony, like I said, just doesn't really do. Nothing's graphic. It's just a sweet little emotional romance story with a bunch of backstory and everything. It also has in continuity with it. Tootsie Fruit Makes Three. Like I said, is a very sweet little story. And so that's in the background, you know. Anyway, so there's also a so anyway, Spike gets cured of his Were-Pony sickness on Rarity's request to just stay a baby dragon, and so he gets cured by the end, and that's pretty much it. Chapter 2 pretty much picks up a month afterwards, where Rarity finds she's pregnant with Spike's child, and her trying to keep that a secret, and Spike getting kind of a bit concerned, like why she doesn't want to see him and this and that, and eventually she tells him what's going on. He goes and gets himself a job, and then Celestia finally comes in and says, "Look, we'll pay you in retroactively. You know, if you need money, we'll pay you, kid, for all the time you've assisted Twilight." Because then Twilight's under her servitude or whatever, so it goes over to Celestia. So Celestia basically just pays him in back pay for all those years of helping. And Spike's sister shows up. So that's pretty good. She's older than Spike, and so it's a cute little story, romantic little thing. No graphicness, just a bit of high emotions and Rarity being a bit spastic, possibly due to the fact that of the hormones and the pregnancy. So it's more understandable of why it goes a little bit further with her acting out. And that storyline is then continued over after that in the other story, which is Luna the Matchmaker. I guess we'll go into there since that kind of continues the story of these three stories. Tootsie Flute Makes Three, and Curse of the Were Pony 1 and 2, and Luna the Matchmaker. Pretty much it's just Luna just plays matchmaker to the main six, pretty much, with the other stories in the background. And yeah, just Luna just keeps on, matching everyone up, making suggestions, and bringing ponies and colts together. And yeah, so it's another sweet little story. No graphicness, no clopping, just straight up romantic fanfic. And then it basically congeals or goes or adds up to the last member of the main six getting into a relationship with Luna, the matchmaker in question. So it's a very Luna-centered story arc involving the main six around that. So once all the main six or main five have been matched and paired up, we also get into the backstory of Scootaloo, and that the reason why we don't see Scootaloo's parents and all that, about her living alone for the past few years by herself. She gets adopted by Rainbow Dash, and Scoots finds out that Sweetie Belle is kind of or Scootaloo is interested in Sweetie Belle, and so there's that all backstory that these two, which are young teenagers at this time, like 11 or 12, I'm guessing by this timeline, I'm not entirely sure, but they're young teenagers, and they find they're like kind of into each other a bit, kind of like. So there's the slight undercurrent of that. It's not graphic or anything. It's kind of more of like, I have this feeling, pretty much, is all that is expressed in their little subplot. And then there's this, at the current story, we are, as this review is being recorded, Sweetie Belle finds out that um, that Rarity has it um, that the Rarity's secret of keeping her as her sister instead of her child was because that Rarity's mother wanted to use child services to take um, Rarity's child away, Sweetie Belle away, and put into child protective services, up for adoption, because Rarity had her out of wedlock, and the father just took off. He was a jerk, so he just left, and so that whole big secret is out, but Sweetie Belle won't doesn't let on that she knows, and is being a bit difficult with Rarity at the time. At the last chapter that I read, so it is really quite interesting having all these subplots. Oh, and Twilight's pregnant and is going to give birth soon. Discord appears after Twilight gives birth and introduces this whole other story arc and plot device and everything else, saying it's now going to become a bigger story, pretty much. So this simple little, matchmaker storyline has just exploded into this gigantic... There's going to be a giant war. It's going to take hundreds of years in time, and it's just going to be epic. So it's a very interesting turn where you think it's going to end, and then it turns out this is just the beginning. So yeah, major kudos to whoever wrote that. So I recommend it. And yeah, it's trash day today, so there's the garbage truck is outside right now. Ugh. Anyway, so those are all the little stories so far. The next one is a bit of a change up here. This one actually is a clop fic. It's very short. It's only 2 chapters long. And Luna the Matchmaker is being read by Harry Herting. Let's see here. It's called... The next story is called Beat Stream. It's 2 chapters, like I said. And it stars Vinyl Scratch. Of course, this Vinyl Scratch is straight. So she's only into male ponies. Which is okay, it's cool, whatever. It's very cute. It's not too overly... It's graphic, but it's not overly graphic. I don't know exactly what is the right balance of graphic is. It has a lot of the... Okay, let's start at this. The basic story is Vinyl Scratch goes and has a rap battle, party or whatever. They go to clubs and they have rap battles between 2 DJs. So the DJ she was paired up against was some cult, and he apparently... They get like this weird vibe between their songs that they are just so in sync that they just take off immediately afterwards and go to the hotel room and, just to go get it on. And it shows like their foreplay where they kind of have this like weird... kind of hard to describe without having to get into details, but their foreplay is very charming. It's very innocent. It's very honest. They really just let down all their barriers, and peel back all the layers, and they just like are so romantically blunt and honest with each other about how they feel and what they like and what they find a turn on and everything. It's... yeah. The dialogue was really good. Oh, and Vinyl, her response, other than the narrator playing all the voices, the Vinyl's voice is played by a secondary voice actress that sounds a lot like Darlene from Roseanne, but her mic recording that she's recording on recording process isn't really too good. So you hear like a little bit of noise on her part, but her acting and stuff is pretty good. She sounds like what Vinyl Scratch would kind of look like, a bit of a husky female voice, which is good. I liked it. It sounds right. So basically, the first chapter pretty much takes place in the bathroom with their foreplay and honesty about each other and trying to, get through this without saying the wrong thing. And they really open up to each other, verbally and socially and mentally and emotionally. So they open up on all these different other levels, And then it moves to the bedroom where it all gets physical and stuff, which is also graphic, but not disgusting or anything. It depends on your tastes and all that. I found it in good taste. I think it's a cute, romantic, graphic sex story. So for mature readers, I think it's okay. Definitely NC-18 at this point, but it's still a good love story at its core, and I recommend it. If it's on your tastes, all right, just click on to something else. My recommendation. Yeah, so it's a cute little story, and that's it. It is read by Beat Stream is read by Prince of Pegasus. Okay, moving on. The next, basically two, is called My Little Fluttershy, and the other one is My Little Dashie. My Little Dashie is pretty much already done, and My Little Fluttershy is pretty much still being in the works. Dashie is like 20 chapters long. It's about a guy in the human world finds a baby Fluttershy in a box, and there's this whole backstory of why she's there. It's more of the in the vein of the fanfic that the Pony universe is a parallel universe, and the TV show kind of coincides with it to a varying degree, which is still pretty close. So this is like Fluttershy from the TV show. Has a lot of emotion. Each chapter really just draws you in emotionally. After a while, it really gets emotionally exhausting because each chapter really tries to just pull you in. Even kind of at times where it feels like it doesn't really need to be so emotional. It's like, when a chapter when a certain part of a story needs to get emotional, it's okay. But in every chapter, it has to feel like it makes you cry. You do care for these characters a lot, but it gets a little tiring having to feel for these characters in every chapter. It feels just a bit excessive to me. There's also a cameo appearance by Dr. Who's Sakura. But it's still an emotional thrill ride between this human and Dashie, and it's good. It's good. It's one of the first ones I had heard of, so it's good. My Little Fluttershy is in the same vein. The chapters are a lot shorter. They're more like 10 minutes long or less. It's still being read, and it's good. Except that it stars this incredibly rich guy instead of this really poor guy in Dashie's story, and he finds Fluttershy as a little pony again, little baby, and starts to raise her in this big mansion. And these ponies really bring like a joy and light to these guys' rather very sad worlds and lifestyle, regardless if you're rich or poor. So it really gives you that personal quality, It's not objects, it's people that enrich your life. Anyway, so moving on. Oh, here's a very interesting fanfic. It's a clop again. entitled "An Hour Alone with Rarity." It's a single chapter, and it's pretty much it's a parallel universe again. A story where a regular Joe answers a question on the internet, and he wins an hour alone with Rarity. And she visits his universe, where she wants to get into a more or less a one night stand with a human to see what that's like. It's, like I said before, it really depends on your tastes. I found it in good taste. Nothing was too, you know, off putting about it. Didn't make me feel uncomfortable listening to it. It felt like a nice little tender love story. Well, short lived. It's a one night stand. It's not really going to be, a serious relationship. It's more in the vein of a one night stand. But it feels like they really, let down the barriers again. They talk honestly. They share in things. There is not just, and then they just get it on. It's, they talk a bit. He asks why him, she explains her reasons. They share in different stuff. They talk about different things before even starting to get, physical about anything. They talk for a little while. They get to know each other more. He shares a fanfic. I believe they reference the title or whatever, and he reads it to her, and so it's a good tender story, but it's a one night stand sort of a thing, but it still has a good solid basis and a good solid well rounded story, with clopping in it between humans and ponies, but it doesn't feel too gross or anything. It feels like a tender love story. It's only one chapter long. It's like 45 minutes or something like that. And I find it in good taste. It handles itself well. And it's good to listen to if you have like a minute to yourself or whatever. And I find it a good read or listen to or whatever. So, yeah. It's of good quality. That's all I can really say about it. It's of good quality. Let's see here. For All to See is very short. It's like 15 minutes. It's pretty much an adapted sequel to The Moon's Embrace, which is another a Twilight and Luna crossover or relationship. First one is pretty much Moon's Embrace, where Luna takes Twilight to the moon and shows her pretty much where she was imprisoned for years and years. Well, the 1,000 years she was gone. And Twilight and Rarity kind of like fall in love there, and the story kind of ends happily with them, falling in love. And then For All to See pretty much takes place sometime after, where Luna's trying to make a star constellation, but she can't quite get it, and she kind of mentally battles her doubts of like Nightmare Moon and stuff. And it's very short. It wraps up pretty well, but nothing feels too rushed. And it pretty much just ends with Luna making a big star constellation in the shape of the star on Twilight's cutie mark. So it's a very short. These two stories are very short, and it's very sweet. No real clopping too much, I don't think. At least I remember, not that I can remember. So it's a very good romantic story, and I don't think there's any real graphicness to it. So it's a good little thing just to kind of just to feel the emotions of between the two characters is very nice. A good mental story. This next one is called White Box. There's one in there that's more of an animatic that has like pictures that actually change instead of just like a title picture or a title card with it. It just says the chapter title. Um, White Box itself is like 10 chapters. They're pretty short-ish, but it chronicles the day and day of this pony in a white box. He's in this mental institution jail, where he's in a clear white room, and it's a institution where these incredibly dangerous ponies are kept, and he doesn't remember anything before and all that, but he gets visited by Twilight at some sort of rehabilitation program, and he gets um, intrigued by just the color, excuse me, by the color of her coat, which is purple. At first, he hates it because she's different than white and black, and then he starts to love it and starts to kind of like love her a bit. She reintroduces him into color because apparently he had forgotten everything before he had gotten there. So complete and utter sensory deprivation has pretty much destroyed his mind. But he starts to fall in love with colors again. Twilight eventually leaves, and he pretty much paints himself a nice little world to live in, and it pretty much ends on that. But with the animatic, it actually does help with the visuals. It's a good little story. It's a bit of a psycho thriller-ish, where the guy, you kind of see it through the eyes and mind of this guy who's just too dangerous to really be let alone to his own devices, really. So he's a danger to society. So that's why. So yeah, it's a good story. I liked it. Next up is this. It basically, the title is more like Spike's Rainbow Dash, pretty much. It's kind of tied into Double Rainboom a little bit. It takes place in Canterlot. It's just this, not a sweet little story, but an oddball little story where Rainbow Dash's like competitiveness somehow gets her into this little pickle about Spike and Rainbow Dash's ability to make the other fall for them. So they get caught up in this little thing that feels very episodic, MLP episodic, this like from the show. And it kind of goes on for about 6 chapters. Hopefully they'll make more. So it's incomplete, but the back and forth, thing gets pretty good. And then the whole town, the whole country starts betting on which one can make the other fall in love with them first. And so everyone's on pins and needles watching this date unfold. And pretty much that's where the story leaves off currently. But it seems a bit contrived, just a tiny bit, but it's a good, solid story, and everyone stays more or less in character. So it's nice. The world of Canterlot or Ponyville or whatever feels like it is from the show. So no one's out of character. Situation's a bit unique, especially between these two. And yeah, it's a good little story to listen to. I recommend it. There's no violence or clopping, so it's a story even for young teens to enjoy. Okay, this next one is also pretty good. It's a bit NC-17 rated because there's clopping involved. It's called What Would Daring Do? And it's a dual story between Rainbow Dash, Applejack, and 2 lead members of the Wonderbolts. And basically the Wonderbolts backstory of how it got formed and all that with Thunder Lane and everyone else. And it's a dual story where you follow the main story and then next to it is whenever a character reads the book of Daring Do, we follow parallel with that story. So whenever one chapter is about the main story, the second chapter is about what the character is currently reading, which is a Daring Do book. And it's really good. Gets a bit cloppish in the Daring Do story, because it stars Daring Do, which is a similar character to Rainbow Dash, and that character and Daring meets a character like Applejack, and their whole like Texan out west story about trying to defeat some bandits that are hunting them down. So it's a really good dual parallel story. Um, doesn't feel too confusing. It feels genuine. Um, Storytelling between the story and the side story. Um, has good emotion, good relationships that are built and fall apart, and everyone's feelings on everything. It's really good. It's really good. Some adult content in it, but other than that, yeah, it's pretty good. So young teens probably could enjoy it, along with older teens. It really depends on your mileage, what you're comfortable with. But all in all, it's all just a really good adventure story to listen to. Um, okay, so moving on. Thunder Lane and Octavia is a short little story where at the Galloping Gala, Octavia meets up and has like a short little walk home date with Thunder Lane for a little bit. It has like two alternate endings to it or whatever. It's still a bit good. I liked it. Night Guards shows like the events of Luna becoming Nightmare Moon and the aftermath and everything of her Night Guards staying loyal to her and their interactions with the rest of the castle and the people that they capture. So that's a good story. I just heard the first couple of chapters, so it's off to a good start. Entangled is a straightforward clop. It involves Fluttershy and Discord in their relationship. It's a single chapter, I believe. Discord's pretty good. It sounds and feels like Discord. He makes fourth wall jokes and references. It's pretty sweet. Fluttershy sounds like Fluttershy, so it's just a standard clop, So, but the dynamic is nice. It's a short story, but nice. I liked it. Okay, so Get Themselves a Room. It's a single chapter. Pretty much it's about Princess Luna, who's the guardian of dreams. Pretty much sees the dreams of Applejack and Rainbow Dash. And they have like a thing for each other. They have these rather vivid, erotic themed dreams about each other, and Luna just can't really take it that these two are like, so wanting each other. So she tries to help get them two together. So it's similar to Luna the Matchmaker, if memory serves. So it's something along those lines, but it's pretty cute. I remember liking it. Single chapter, so it's just for one sit-in. Nuzzle Therapy is, again, just like that, but I believe it's minus Luna. It's pretty much just that Applejack and Rainbow Dash are kind of already together, so it could be viewed as a sequel to Get Themselves a Room. And Nuzzle Therapy is pretty much very high emotional story, where Rainbow Dash is pretty much just so in love with Applejack. Like, she is like her world, her entire world. Like it's difficult to breathe around her, like that. But it's good. I liked it. No clopping or anything, just high emotion. Like my heart skips a beat. It's difficult to breathe. So it's a lot of just high emotion. Friends with Benefits. Okay, next is Friends with Benefits. It's an epic, so it's many chapters. It's like around 10, I guess. It also involves Rainbow Dash and I believe his name is Thunder Lane, one of the members of the Wonderbolt. And it shows their relationship Thunder Lane has an accident while performing, and he loses his memory, and that memory involves him and Rainbow Dash, and so he kind of relearns slowly through revealing events that he was in a romantic relationship with Thunder Lane for a while, and it isn't a clop fic. It's just a role. It's an emotional journey. It's an epic emotional journey of falling in love all over again. It's all pretty believable. Nobody's really out of character. It's a lot of new situations and dynamics, so it's a bit new, and you have to kind of get used to it. But it's a good romantic thrill ride. It's like Romancing the Stone. It just kind of goes from place to place, introduces new villains, stays with the characters' high emotions. It's NC-13 at this point. It has some mature content, but nothing's graphic or anything. It just speaks of high emotions and a bit of, it's just all in all high emotions and just relationship dynamics. That's it. So the mature content is just the relationship dynamics. That's it. So nothing really adult oriented. So no clopping or anything. Just flirting, hitting on, suggestions, and proposals, but nothing really physically actually really happens. I liked it. It was a good epic from start to finish. Next is Practice is Perfect. This is a Twilight and Rainbow Dash fanfic. It's basically them going on a practice date without realizing it's actually a date. So Rainbow Dash and Twilight go on this date, and Twilight, I believe, doesn't know that it's an actual date. She thinks it's a practice date to try and some dating advice from Rainbow Dash, and it turns more into a real date, and at the end they kind of end up together. It's a very short, very romantic, non-clop romance. I liked it. Bale is a bit more adult orientated, where he talks about clopping had taken place, and it still stars the same pair, Rainbow Dash and Twilight, as being a couple, and so it's sort of an adapted sequel. It could be viewed as such. That's just simply titled Bale. That's all. So yeah, it's a good story. Short, same as this one, single chapter. Okay, next one is Affliction of the Heart, or Affliction, meaning conflict of the heart. It's a story about a chrysalis after the events of a counter-lot wedding, where a surviving chrysalis is more or less saved, imprisoned, pretty much by a royal guard, and it kind of just shows their dynamic of each other, of prisoner and more or less warden. But it's in his house. He keeps the chrysalis at his place, because if he took it anywhere else, the changeling would have been killed on sight. So he wants to imprison it to keep it from hurting anyone, but he also can't bring himself to kill it. So it kind of starts off their relationship dynamic between each other. The chapters themselves are short, but this is going to be a bit of a story, so there's a lot of chapters. And it's pretty good. I liked it. There's another fanfic called Meta Ponyville, starring Digibrony, and it basically has Digibrony in the MLP universe, pretty much, where he's a metaphysical representation of himself, or whatever as he describes it. And it just shows his daily life, where he lives, the ponies he interacts with of the main six, and everyone else in Ponyville, as well as his feelings for Applejack and Pinkie Pie. but he doesn't really approach either one because he doesn't know who he likes better, Applejack or Pinkie Pie, because he knows that the real Digibrony, the reviewer, also likes one or the other, so he doesn't know if it's his feelings or his other self's feelings. So he kind of keeps himself in neutral ground that way. It's a short little fictional story. He has a link to the unedited version, where it has a lot of mistakes and commentary and this and that. So yeah, so both cut and uncut versions or unedited version is really really interesting and funny to listen to. Yeah. So I think. Oh wait, I almost forgot. My first fanfic is called University Days. It's about Vinyl and Octavia. Even Digibrony did a review on it. So if you want to know what it's about, real quick, and yeah, it's a good romance story. Shows the development and a slightly bit more of world building between Vinyl and Octavia at their time at the university, their friendship, and then budding romance, and it gets up to a point where chapter 20, where it pretty much just stops, but it's really good. Yeah, it's a really good development of a really good romance, and really good romance between Vinyl and Octavia. For two characters that have only been shown twice in the entire series so far, three seasons pretty much of them actually doing something, doing their song stuff. So with no lines. So this shows how popular even background ponies can be. The only cloppingness in it is chapter 16.5, which was done and it was read. And it's very detailed but not overly graphic. It's very tender, lighthearted. It's very nice. I liked it. It's all in all really good. I recommend it. Even the lost chapter 16.5. Even without it, with that cut out, it's still a really good story. It's not really necessary, but it feels nice. Even having it in there, it's a good, solid love story. And yeah, I guess that's everything. So I've read and listened to all these stories, and I recommend them. They're good. Some discretion required if you want to know if it's more for kids or more for adults. But they're good, solid reads, and just take a listen or a read and see what you think for yourselves. I guess that's all I have to say about. That's all I have to say about that. So that's everything, and there are many more. There's so many little stories and big stories and innocent stories and adult-oriented stories out there to fill the gamut and to find what your tastes are. So just keep looking for a fanfic that suits your tastes. That's all I can say. Just keep on clicking, I guess. So until you, or surfing or whatever. Maybe clicking might be the new surfing term. Who knows? Anyway, so keep on clicking, and as always, see you at the next review. Bye.